I survived. Well,
because they just.
But it's still the same thing.
They let me practice.
That much.
Over the position.
I lost my nose.
Then it just. Somebody.
Yeah, pie chart, can you hear us all right?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Manufactured by. That she owned and. They were, how she was selling. Yeah. In the last 2 or 3 years, I think. It's just. Even a little.
Well, what I didn't like is trying to use an existing zoning
Chuck, can you hear us online?
for it. And it seems.
Yeah, I can hear you. Thanks.
Thank you.
I've asked permission.
Just want to make sure that people online can hear us. Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the guys is out there, they just don't have the food, but what we're getting.
How are you?
Loud.
Uh,
Yeah. But
Good, how are
it's
you?
not, it's,
I see.
I don't know if it's gonna get the intent with, what if the bill really want to do is. Yeah, so.
We just got back from first. We did camping in the area.
Taylor.
Camping beaching, yep. And then we were. Yeah. And then we Saturday we go down to the Smokies. Hiking for a bit and then.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to call to order the Wednesday, June 25, 4 p.m. meeting of the Charlottesville Metropolitan Planning Organization. We appreciate y'all coming out in the cool weather to join us today. And the first item is Gorion's going to help us with the call or for the attendance, if you'll call. Supervisor Malik,
Yes, here.
Supervisor Galloway, present. Councilor Kingston, here. Councilor Washington,
Here.
Sean Nelson. The non-voting members are Mitch Hubert. The alternate non-voting members Wood Hudson,
Here.
Mike Murphy,
Jason Espy for John, present.
Julia Monteith,
Present.
Garland Williams, Stephen Miner, Daniel Koenig, Sarah Midley,
Here.
Christine Jacobs.
Present.
Great, thank you for those who are sitting behind, but we'll be calling on it some point.
Studies, not projects.
Mr. Brock, mute that microphone before you say anything any of us might take advantage of.
Chuck.
Not that we would do that, of course. Item 2 today then, we don't have the remote now. Okay, number 2, matters from the public. Does anyone here wishes to give? Yes, we have one. Sir, you know the drill. You can come on up. Anyone else want to give up? And you have 3 minutes once you state your name for the record.
My name is Paul Grady. I live just outside of Crozet. First, I want to say that I am stunned that Kroger is closing its Hydraulic Road store. I had hoped that Kroger would have become a partner in extending Hillsdale Drive south to Holiday Drive. That connection has to be made. Also, I want to give a 1.5 thumbs up to the diverging diamond at I-64 on Pantops. The only criticism I have is that the traffic lights are not well coordinated with the rest of Richmond Road. In fact, the lights on Long Street aren't well coordinated either. The roundabout at Hydraulic and Hillsdale, again, up 1.5 thumbs up. I have noticed people changing lanes in the roundabout. There should be some signage to discourage that. And last, the extension of the left turn lane on the 250 bypass at Hydraulic Road is still only half as long as it needs to be. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, being that there are no others giving comment, we will close matters from the public. And then we will go to item number 3. So we have an agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Second. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. And then we also have the approval of the April 23rd, 25 meeting minutes. Are there any changes or edits to those minutes? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the April 23, 25 minutes?
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you. All right, that'll take us right to number 4, new business, and the first is the travel demand management study, and Ms. Jenkins will be leading us through this.
I'm just using the PDF.
Good afternoon, everyone. So included in the fiscal year 26 UPWP for the MPO is a transportation demand management study. In preparation of starting the next fiscal year next week, we've drafted a very high level scope of work for you all that was included in your packet. And today we're looking for feedback on if this study fits with regional needs as originally intended. So included on this slide is an excerpt from the UPWP that shares that the idea for this study originated during the completion of the LRTP, which was adopted by the policy board last May. The intention is to reduce vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, specifically within the Charlottesville downtown area, increase trips made by other modes, and enhance connections to our existing multimodal transportation. This study specifically will be completed by MPO staff, so it will not be a consultant study, and I just wanted to point that out as far as. Before we drafted the scope of work, we reviewed other studies that similarly aligned with what we were hoping to do with this study. The first of which is a VMT reduction strategy that was developed by an MPO in Minneapolis-St. Paul area. They used trip characteristics that they identified through a regional travel survey that they conducted to estimate the feasibility of mode shift based on trip distance, competitiveness of travel time on another mode, and potential comfort. A second example of what the study could accomplish is illustrated by an active transportation plan that was conducted in Florida that used streetlight data, which is the original data source that we've identified for the study that we could also use. And they identified trip patterns and top origin destination pairs in their area. So in this graphic, the thicker the line, the higher the trip volume. The final example that we looked at was an origin destination report by another MPO in Florida. This study specifically used replica data, which includes a land use component integrated into it to identify travel patterns both within the MPO area and between study sub-areas.
Taylor, quick question.
Yes.
You mentioned the width of the line means the greater number of trips. Is that any type of trip or?
Yes, and depending on the data source, some data sources identify if they are just vehicle trips and some identify by mode. And so it could be specific based on which data they use.
Thanks.
Yeah. So as with most studies, our staff would begin by reviewing relevant planning documents to identify the planning context, existing infrastructure, and any planned improvements. Also during this task, we'd also look to establish a baseline. So what's our current understanding of VMT and the region and our service area, so that we have an established benchmark to produce or to set improvements. We then propose conducting an origin destination analysis using streetlight data, which is GPS based, and it's a big data source. We primarily selected that because it's available at no cost to the MPO, but as with any other data source, there are pros and cons with what's available in it. So we could also look into other data sources. And we've gotten some great feedback from the MPO Tech Committee last week as well about some other ones to look into. In streetlight generally, trips are available to view by mode, by trip length, and by customizable zones. So we can select certain areas and region to look at. In task 3, we take that information and trip characteristics that we identified in task 2 to recommend improvements and strategies to encourage mode shift and reduce VMT in the MPO region. Some of the strategies that could be considered here could be related to land use policies, rideshare parking programs. It doesn't just have to be infrastructure. We understand how all these things work together to encourage or discourage the mode that someone chooses to take. So we could definitely take a broad look at whatever recommendations come out of this. Finally, in task 4, we do foresee some sort of public engagement component to this study, where we go to the public to understand what their priorities are to make sure that this study is aligned with those. Their engagement could look to gather input on prioritization of the proposed strategies, or it could also serve as a validation of the data that we collect. Like if we use a certain source that shows us mode split, maybe that means we tap into cycling groups or running groups to just see, does this align with the trips that you all know that you're taking? As far as next steps, so today we really wanted to get an outline of the scope in front of you, just to be able to receive some feedback and make sure that we're on the right track as far as what the regional priorities are. We've heard great feedback from the tech committee already about some other data sources to look into and other methodologies. But today we really want to hear from you. So what are the outcomes that you all are looking for in this sort of study? Are we on the right track, and can help us inform sort of what the next draft would look like to bring to you all at your next meeting to start the work?
This is actually more of a question from Ben, I think. I know the city is working on getting bike counters, which I imagine will be useful data for this kind of study. Do we know when yet?
We're working through how many we're buying right now and what locations we want to look out for that, but it's starting data will be varying with this.
It'll be available in time.
I think you have some counts by that point. We also have some temporary ones, so if there are some specific locations where we want to go out and do specific counts, we can have it.
Okay. Thanks.
Other comments or answers? Go ahead.
Couple of thoughts to leave, because this is not my skill set. I think over many years, we have dreamed way above our population size as far as what we want to do here. I mean, since 2000 for sure. So are the studies that are used in San Francisco Bay Area appropriate for some communities of our size? That's probably something Lori looked at, but that's something that popped in my head when I was doing that homework. And also lots of my residents use Strava for it, like in Penn Data, and always encouraging county staff and others to be using that business here. Last thought, is it, in order to not sort of foreclose doors, does one ever ask what public desires are to begin? It's sort of like starting your research with a blank slate instead of saying, I'm going to find the answer to this.
Thank you. And on the Strava data, we have already begun to look into that, and they do make their data available free of charge, which is awesome. So we've applied to get access to that, and they go through the application, take a look at it. So that should be available for us.
The timeline of this relative to the data collection, like when is that occurring over?
So we have this programmed in the fiscal year 26 UPWP, which would begin July 1. And so once we nail down a little bit more of the scope, like a little bit more of the detail and the approach, we'll have a better idea of when the schedule would be. So there wasn't a schedule included in here, but ideally this would be done within fiscal year 26.
And does that align with what's this grant that UVA's with Honda and all of that? Could that be a data source?
SS4A,
Yeah,
that'll be within the 3-year grant, assuming it's awarded.
but would that be would that data be available as a data source to this, or is that too far out? Probably too far out.
Yeah.
I think it'd be the other way around. I think we might be able to utilize whatever we
Share.
collect here to share with
Right.
them for their vulnerable road user
Right.
work.
I guess I'll just make a comment that, different modes of travel for those who currently live here and or regularly work here enough where they have to commute around. But just that constant conflict between all the folks that forget the folks that live here and still drive a lot. But it's in addition to the commuters that have to come here. That someone's we just had a housing study report. Hamilton Lombard was given a presentation, a regional housing partnership, and talking about the demand. Since the housing is a piece, it forces everybody out. They're all having to come here.
Right.
Well, even if they want to bike, they can't bike, right?
Right.
They get here, they can maybe go somewhere, then use an alternative method. I'm just wondering, does this get at that conflict of what exists between, we have our, to steal Chris Fairchild's phrase, we've got our from here's and our live here's, I guess I would change it to those who, the work here's, and then the folks that are, that have to commute here from far, and how do they deal with that vehicle conflict for, you can make the city as much of a alternative mode as you want, but you still have to deal with vehicle traffic. To
And
get
you
in
did?
and through.
Right. We did include in here also looking at park and ride lots and the utilization of those lots to understand, do we have the right capacity of park and ride lots? Are they located in the right areas? Are people still traveling from the places where they were in the past when those were first constructed? So we do have some of that infrastructure built in here as well.
Going off of that, because I think you made several excellent points, including that housing is what's pushing people far away, but still needing to commute in. It might be interesting to add a question of something like, would you like to live closer? Or would you, something where it's incorporating because housing and transportation are the same. You know, you have to transport only as far away as, you know, your destination. So that might be an interesting, just kind of like additional layer to study, because a lot of times, or sometimes when you bring up like, oh, well, you know, people live in the county versus the city, and some people who choose to live in the county versus have to live in the county. And if there's a question that says, well, would you prefer to live closer? That could be a data point, not necessarily for this study, but to be used in other studies about housing. There's like a housing demand sort of
Right.
data point that could be collected simultaneously.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Thank you.
I think the university has a good model that for many, many years, the blue lot was where people who lived out came, parked your car, got your bike off your car and rode your bike to wherever your academic building was, if it didn't match the bus system. So there are, that's just one small example of the way people for decades have had to navigate that, how to get from Boothville down to the urban ring where you could get onto something else.
Yes.
To looking at the university's model around transportation, they have that new their commuting program, and part of it is if you sign up for that, then you have a certain number of guaranteed rides home in case there's an emergency. So if you are using alternate transportation, maybe not like offering free services, but what is the availability of on-demand transit for emergency situations?
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, guess we're probably gonna look at it. We've done quite a few studies, have some studies ongoing now to look to see if there's any data from those pipeline studies and STAR studies
Yes,
that we can utilize to help report this.
definitely.
Taylor, I have a quick question. Are you partly using the precedent studies, the 3 that you shared with us, to help refine your scope? In other words, use those to better understand what was observed in those communities and then
Right.
refine.
And to really help guide the methodology to understand like how are people performing this type of study, so that we could seek to replicate that or look at their data sources and what type of conclusions they drew from that source to influence whether we decide to use it.
Can you talk just a little bit more about Streetlight?
Yeah, so Streetlight is a GPS-based cell phone big data source. And so it takes all of this GPS data and it aggregates it and de-identifies all the personal information in it and makes it available for transportation planning. Anyone can purchase this data to use it to do any sort of planning or analysis that they want. And VDOT has a statewide contract. They've used it for before and after analyses for construction projects that they've done, and any other planning needs that they have. And they have developed, I think BTRC, the Transportation Research Council, has developed guidance on here's how you can conduct some of these planning studies with it. So it's one of many that's available out there. That one is just easily accessible for us. But other ones that folks have used, Replica is another big data source that incorporates a couple different data points and not just the cell phone data. But it's one of a couple options that are out there.
Cool. Thanks.
And I think this study also, just selfishly from a PDC and an MPO perspective, gives us an opportunity to go in and use that data and see what the capabilities are. So it's a learning opportunity to build capacity within our region for what all can we garner from that data that we just have not used previously.
Is there a cost associated to?
So this was built into the MPO's work plan, and we allocated, I believe, just under 58,000 out of the work plan, the budget for next fiscal year to do it.
And this would be, as you say, staffed by y'all.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Awesome.
Is there any feedback that we haven't provided that you need us to provide?
No, I think this was great. I really appreciate it. And we will bring at the next meeting, another scope of work to hopefully get signed off and get started on. So we look forward to that.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Moving on to item 4B, Charlottesville Area Transit FTA Low or No Emission Project. And this will be led by your favorite transit director and mine. Mr. Garland.
It's not 4 o'clock.
Appreciate it. So I'm actually going to, this presentation was done by me at the technical team a week ago now. But Bruce, which is Kat's senior project manager, that's going to do the presentation. So I just want to give you kind of a intro as to what we are contemplating. So Kat's always looking for additional funding, other people's money to make projects that are of magnitude happen. In this case, we are looking at doing some capital improvements on our lot because we're looking to expand services and we're actually looking to transition our fleet to a more environmentally friendly fleet. So when those two things culminate together, we find an opportunity. There's a no-load grant that annually comes out. We were hoping that it would come out this year. We weren't sure because of the change in administration, but it did come out. So it came out on May 14th. The FTA made $1.5 billion available. And of that 1.5 billion, 1.1 is specifically for the low or no emissions grant. So we're going to take an opportunity to apply for one of the grant opportunities. We want to give you a kind of a scope of all the major projects that we're kind of getting done, and then we're going to basically sensitize that down to an application we're working on right now that we will be applying for by July 14th. I said 16th last time, but it's actually the 14th. 16th, we would have missed the date. So so I'm going to turn it over to Bruce, and he's going to give you a kind of a heads up on the projects we're getting done.
Thank you, Garland. We will have it in on the 14th for
We
sure.
will have it in on the 13th.
On the 13th, there you go. I'll have it in on the 13th. So I'm Bruce White. I'm the senior project manager, as Garland just said. I've been on the job for about a year. So I've been working very hard to bring CAT in line with the council's desires that they voted on back in February of 2024. So as Garland said, we're getting ready to submit the low-no, but we've been working for a year, even though this was kind of short notice. We just received notice 4 weeks ago, and it's due in 3 or 4 weeks. We're ready. And the reason we're ready is because we've been working with our vendors and internally to generate these products. So we have 3 major projects we started working on last summer. The first, feasibility study, and we contracted with the vendor Kimley Horn, renowned, national vendor. And they're working also with Wendell, the architecture firm that was their sub. So the first product was the feasibility study, very in-depth analysis. It weighed all the different types of zero emission vehicles. It also looked at our routes, put everything together in one nice package to give us a vision forward. Taking that feasibility study, the next product was led by Wendell, the architecture firm. They did a site evaluation. They looked at our buildings, they looked at the turf, they looked at what we had on the ground to support a transition into zero emission vehicles. And then finally, the third product was the transition study that kind of made the first 2 together and gave us a roadmap forward. So we have, now let me say one other thing. It was kind of a 1-2 punch on those last 3 reports. It was building towards the future. It's about a 15-year timeline we were looking at. The buses have a 12-year lifespan, so it fit real nicely into a 15-year plan, which also makes up with the zero emission milestones. There was a milestone at 2050 to be completely carbon free, but 2040 is kind of our interim milestone. And there's also a milestone at 2030, which I believe is a 45% reduction. So that was kind of the timeline. So building towards the future was one in growth, and then the other, of course, transition to zero emission. The interesting thing about the low-no criteria, it added a third prong for us. Building for the future, transition to zero emission. What the low-no, if you read the actual product, because we have a new administration, they shifted the focus on it a little bit, and they want it to be led by a discussion and argument on supporting families with children. So our low-no submission has to kind of negate our routes up with the Charlottesville family situation as it relates to our bus routes and prove to them that we rate the money that we're asking for that purpose. So we are currently operating on the top lot. It's 6 acres. That's where the proper site is. There's 2 main buildings. 1545 is the administration building and 1549 is the maintenance building. It's a 5-bay shop. It's been in existence, about 2008-ish, 2010. It's about 15 years old. It's working. The problem is it will not support zero emission vehicles. And the main reasons are the safety. We have a edict from council to have a dual pilot program. We're gonna go both battery electric, BEV, and fuel cell electric, FCEV. So our mandate right now is to do dual pilots. Our building does not support either one. Both zero emission options present different safety challenges. Batteries, of course, the main thing you need to contend with is the potential for fire. If there's a battery fire, it's really important to be able to put it out and to contain it and to isolate it. That's batteries. Hydrogen, the main focus is ventilation. You have to move air if you're going to work with hydrogen. So in either case, our maintenance facility is not adequate right now for the next 15, 20, 30 years. If you look at the feasibility study, we could provide, it's on the website, I believe. The building, of course, can be retrofitted. Other main transit agencies have done that. We had Kimley Horn and Wendell look at retrofitting our current maintenance facility, 1549. I think that cost us in the $15 to $20 million range. Really expensive. So you just have to balance that against building starting fresh and doing it right. The other big thing you gain from starting fresh is the ability to phase your products. Because as we transition to zero emission, assuming we're still going to do that, that's what we're doing right now. We have to operate diesel during the period, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, however long we're going to keep operating diesel buses. Then our new platform, whether it's electric or hydrogen, we'll have 3 different platforms, at least 2. So it's much better to have a new building to be able to phase the transition to a new bus. So that's lot 6. The other 2 buildings up here, they're small. This one is the service building, 1555. That's where the vehicles are fueled, oil, washer fluid, all the fluids are out there. They drive through every night to be fueled. 1559 is the wash rack. That's where they go through. Now, the interesting thing is the middle lot, and that's kind of the focus of our low-no request, because we want to develop that piece of property. We have this beautiful, pristine 3-acre lot sitting right next to us that we happen to own. We bought in 2001. So it's been sitting there for 25 years waiting for this move. Yeah, really, foresight was just amazing. The interesting thing is we bought it from Delaney back in 2001. The plumbing the venerable Charlottesville plumbing manufacturer that moved, I think, from New York and New Jersey back in the 70s and set up their plant on the lower lot, the 4-acre lot. And they operated for decades there, beautiful family business. They're not really operating to the same level they were before. There's some other sub tenants in there, a party storage facility. The building is not being used to its highest and best use in our potential, but of course it's taking off cash for the Delaney family, and so it is still a business entity to them. We've reached out to Delaney to talk with them to see if they're interested in selling the 4-acre parcel as well. Thus far, not a lot of interest, but that may change. So we're planning as if one day up the road we'll be able to buy the 4-acre parcel that Delaney still owns. And please feel free to interrupt, obviously, if you'll have any questions. So this was done by Wendell. This is just a snapshot of the existing CAT facility, pretty much describes what I just discussed. One key point with this photo is our current parking in between the 2 rows of buildings is for 40 buses. Right now we have about 40 buses, 36, 38, 40 in that range, depending on the flow of new buses versus retired buses. The problem is our 15-year plan calls for at least rising up to 60 buses and probably beyond that. I'm not sure what the latest for Ben is, because I know some of the council members want to see increased service. Get the, the frequency down from 45 minutes to 30 minutes to 15 minutes. That's gonna take more buses. We need a place to park the buses. It's a simple geometry problem. We do not have parking for the buses right now. So at a minimum, at an absolute minimum, we need to develop the middle lot for more parking. But that's just the tip of the iceberg with what we're really talking about. This is a conceptual plan done by Randall. This was done during that second document I had up a few minutes ago, the site plan evaluation. Conceptual, and we didn't pay a lot of money for it. It's just kind of big brush strokes as to what we're going for. But this shows the new maintenance facility down in the lower portion in the orange. And it's a 7-bay. It also includes a 2 pull-through. There's a debate, I think, kind of in the bus maintenance community, whether pull-through is better or drive in and back out. Obviously, it's never optimal to back out buses, but I'm not an expert in that area. But this has the best of both worlds. We have 5 bays where you pull in and back out, and then there's 2 pull-through bays where you can go all the way through. The pull-through bays are also required if we move to articulated buses, the really long buses, such as been proposed for up and down Route 29 potentially in the future if we have the need for that. Now, up above that is interesting because we have the mandate to do hydrogen pilot testing right now. And hydrogen is interesting because we're gonna probably start small. To start small in hydrogen, you import hydrogen. And you can either import liquid hydrogen or gaseous hydrogen. They bring a trailer up, they park it right in front, and you start drawing hydrogen from it. You still need equipment. You need equipment to convert it to the right form. You need equipment that can put it into a bus. But if we go to hydrogen, the inexpensive way to do a pilot is to import it. What Kimley Horn said in their feasibility study and in the transition study is, at some point, if we decide hydrogen is the way to go, which many jurisdictions have, then we would either go to larger scale importation, or we could start to produce our own hydrogen with units that are called electrolyzers. So that you convert electricity into hydrogen via these machines that you buy. They're a little pricey, but when you cost everything together, it makes sense. Next to that is the locations for the charging equipment. If we go with battery electric buses, we basically need a charging dispenser for each bus. It doesn't have to be 1-for-1, but in general, you're going to have to come close to 1-for-1 if you're going to charge buses. So you have to plug them in. The charging apparatus that can also be pricey, but you just have to do it, and that's what we're doing right now. And I'll talk a little bit more. We're also doing the pilot charging right over here on our existing lot. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. So this is the hydrogen area I was talking about. This is the potential battery electric charging. Here are the 5 bays. There's the pull-throughs. This is parking for non-revenue vehicles. We could also put more chargers there. One other interesting thing about this plan is you'll notice something's missing, and that's the existing maintenance garage, which we would one day demo that. And this is like 15, 20 years old. Make sure we get the useful life out of it, and we make the best use of our real estate. Any questions on that? Okay, so next I'd like to talk about.
Were there any questions?
Oh, in the dreaming category, possibly solar panels on roof deck over our parking
Absolutely.
spaces to generate your electricity.
So I almost called you Crystal for a second. No, Crystal loves that idea from sustainability. And of course, not only on top of the buildings, but you could also, anywhere you park buses, you could put, kind of cantilever, solar parking. We've made multiple trips. I've only made one, but Garland's made 3 trips. I think 2 trips to Champaign, Illinois. It's a renowned hydrogen facility. Some of you were there. They have a massive solar panel there, and they are producing hydrogen exclusively with solar. They've hit to the point now where they're topping out their capacity. So they're going to have to either put an electrolyzer in or start importing hydrogen. But they've been very successful thus far with just solar producing hydrogen for them. Did that answer your question? The answer is yes. So next up, we asked Kimberly Warren, okay, and I actually watched some of the old videos from city council back in February or March of 2024, and I thought the most appropriate question was, how much will this all cost? Has anyone projected this out? Well, we did. We projected it out with the help of Kimberly Warren. We weren't making the books internally. Everything's been done by external impartial vendors. So Kimberly Horn produced a report, and this is obviously not readable, but that's what I'm going to speak from today. And that's where our low-no request comes from, mainly from the Kimberly Horn report. The main thing we're going to ask for in the low-no report is the new maintenance facility. When Kimberly Horn gave us this financial analysis, they gave it to us in PDF form, and you'll see. So, this is the maintenance facility. This is phase 1 in their financial report. This is the battery electric. We don't have a location yet, but assuming we put it here, this is where we could put the pilot hydrogen fueling area. So the important thing about Kimberly Horn with any financial analysis, and especially because it's over a long period of time, their report covers, I think, 7 years. What assumptions? And one of the most important assumptions is they use the 5% inflation figure, which is, pretty high for a longevity financial analysis. But it's good for us because the numbers are, I mean, it's good and bad. They're large, but they're righteous, I think, which is helpful. So that's a key assumption. The external things they left out are important. They no grid upgrades. We are counting on no grid impact in the short term. So we're not anticipating Dominion knocking on our door saying we need a substation for $5 million. Not yet. I mean, that discussion could happen 5 years, 10 years from now. But right now, especially with the school buses and the transit buses being located in the same area of the grid, it's something we have to consider long term. What impact will this have on Dominion, and is Dominion going to be with us, and who's paying? Very important question. But nothing in the short term. We haven't had any friction from them at all asking for money for a pilot program in the short term. In fact, they've been very helpful. I'm sure most of you know what they're doing on the school bus side of things. Electrolyzers are not included. That's about it for the really important ones, for the assumptions. So this is the format they gave us. Like I said, it's about a 7-year inflated 5%. So these numbers here, these are the key numbers for the phase 1 for the maintenance building. Their payments 3, 4, and 5 years out inflated 5%. So that, I mean, that's good for us because the present value is less. And you figure if we get this low is successful, the number that we're asking for in the timing, we have all the designs done and everything put together, it should be pretty good given Kimberly Horn's projections. So let's talk a little bit more detail about those. So you can see the grand total is 37 million-ish, paid 4 to 5 years from now, inflated 5%. That's really important for that number. It's a 25,000 square foot building, as I said, 7 bays, 5 single, 2 double. But most important, we cannot transition in the current building. We need to do something if we're going to transition to zero emission because of the safety concerns. This is just a little blurb. We came up with the number. Did you want to talk about the number at all, the 39.9 ask, Darlene? Sure. You want? Okay. So we had to pick a number. So we're going to put in for the request, the grant, and Kimberly Horn's numbers were kind of fuzzy because of the projections, and they were just order of magnitude numbers anyway. We didn't want to be unreasonable given the size of our transit operation and the size of our jurisdiction. We're kind of in the small to medium range, looking at other towns. So we wanted to punch within our weight, not too much above our weight, and we came to 39.9 was our ask. It's not cast in stone. We could change it. It's not due until the 13th.
So the 39.9 is important because we wanted to make sure that we, as we're working through and get to the actual design, that the numbers escalate. We've seen double-digit increases year after year on construction. We believe 39 protects us So we would have to come back to this body to make adjustments. That was one of the factors. And that way we can still proceed without having to come back and ask for an adjustment.
And we wanna win, we wanna be successful. If we ask for too much, if we ask for too little, or why didn't we ask for more money to really cover this project? So,
Yeah, we don't wanna be in a position where we'll have to go back and ask for $2 or $3 million as a short-term bridge to finish up the project. We believe 39 million should cover all the expenses to get the project.
So it would cover all of the expenses. There's not like a local match request or,
There's a local match request, the low node grant, it more than likely it's 80-20. Depending on the request, whether it's between 4 to 8 million, depending on how you look at it. So we're working through that model right now about, we have about half that money reserved. We have been looking at about doing capital projects before. The other one is, we're working on, with, the finance team about identifying, we bring that to council about how to get that other part funded.
so is that 39.9 just the grant part or the total project cost?
Oh,
And so if they award us that much, they then say 20% of that has to come from you, or like, okay,
so if we're asking for, if the total project is $39 million, in the assumption when they give us the award letter, it will basically say what our commitment has to be versus theirs.
got it. So it's not, they give us 39.9 and then we add 20% of that. Okay, thank you.
Well,
okay, so that's kind of what we were gonna talk about with regard to the low node. I'm just gonna tag a few other things on here because they're important to the overall picture. The two things I'd like to talk about is NEPA and the battery charging infrastructure we're putting in right now. So NEPA, this is an environmental law we have to comply with to use federal funds. We're applying NEPA both to the 3-acre parcel and the 4-acre parcel, even though we have no contract or anything for the 4-acre. It's easy to include it in the NEPA analysis. So just in case we're able to come to terms with Delaney, we won't lose 3 years or 2 years worth of money. It's very inexpensive and efficient to do it. So NEPA, we're about, I would say about 60% through right now. We were working with Kinley Horn earlier and Wendell. The reason we went with another firm, RK&K, we competitively bid, obviously, but there was also a conflict issue that needed to be resolved because NEPA, it really asks the fundamental question is, should the federal government invest in this lot? Should we use federal taxpayer dollars? And it looks at all the issues swirling it around. Well, Kinley Horn and Wendell kind of have a vested interest in the answer being yes. So when you look at the regulations regarding NEPA, you're not supposed to contract, if possible, with the same firm that is in a good position if the NEPA is successful. So we went with a firm called RK&K in Richmond, and they've been doing a great job, and we're really happy with them thus far. Those are the 5 main categories. Hazardous materials, that's the phase 1, phase 2 testing. We've already passed the phase 1. We're going to do some very limited soil testing to make sure the soil is okay. Traffic analysis, all the data collection is done. They're just writing the report. Cultural resources has already been resolved. It's complete with a thumbs up.
What does that mean?
Say again?
What does that mean?
Cultural resources relates to prior human activity on the property. And it's funny because when you look at we got the phase 1 report, they're really fun because you get these pictures dating back 100 years, aerial things, and lot 2 used to be cleared. It was like farmland, and all those trees you see there now are second growth trees, third growth trees. So the lot actually was part of someone's homestead at one point, so that's a cultural activity. Of course, it could also go much farther back, Native Americans and things like that. So the team came out, they physically looked at the ground, they walked the lot in very great detail. They sent the report up to the state agency that monitors this. The state agency looked at everything and said, case closed. We're satisfied there is no cultural implication on this lot. So we were all kind of shocked because we thought they would be going deeper into that. And that's also another soil sampling thing. What they'll do is they'll put a big grid and they'll come out and dig, looking for remnants and anything that could be of cultural significance, but it's depth, it's resolved. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, we're really happy about that. Noise and vibration, they've already done the sampling, we just haven't received the final report. And natural resources, they're about halfway through that, they walked the terrain and they didn't find any natural resources on the parcels. But there are 3 different species, 2 bat and 1 butterfly, that they pulled from external websites that are regionally related. And what we're gonna have to do is probably schedule the construction at certain times and not do it during certain seasons when they're breeding and leading and whatever, that would help to keep the species alive. 2 bat and 1 butterfly. And the butterfly, of course, is the monarch, which everybody loves. The bats, everyone loves bats here, so we got it covered. That's the bottom line.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it's important, super important. Anyway, this just illustrates we're studying both lots. This is important. NEPA has 3 levels of classes of action. Everybody in the world is telling us we're going to be at the lowest procedural level. And this relates to public notice and comment and how much process, we're talking about due process, how much process is due. We're going to have the minimal due process. We'll be shocked if it's not a CE categorical exclusion. So that's also good. Okay, so battery electric, we have a quote from Kim and Horn, 4 million for the pilot charging. I'll just put this is my last slide too. We are in the process right now of putting in the pilot charging apparatus. We're lucky because on Elon we have a major power line that goes right down the street. So just like UVA just did on the Millmont lot, they put a new power pole in, they just pull the power pole in and put it right in the corner. Then you have to put a new meter box, transformers, and the chargers come in 2 pieces. There's this power block piece and then there's a dispenser piece. We are planning, just like UVA did for their first wave, for 8 dispensers. It may end up being 6 on the lot and 2 in the garage. We're still working that issue out. Ideally, we're gonna have chargers in the maintenance bay so that we can power up the buses if needed to keep them running. Minimum 1, probably 2. We're still working on the details. I think we have the draft. We're working with Dewberry. The UVA was so helpful to us. They've been just wonderful people over there. We've been to their lot probably 7 or 8 times. And we just asked them, who did you guys use? Dewberry. So who did you, who would Dewberry? So we got their number and that same person who designed their systems is designing ours. We got a very attractive price for that. It's a proven success. So we're really comfortable. They just gave us our draft construction drawings and we're chopping them right now. So the biggest challenge we found with putting in the charging infrastructure is surprisingly the transformers. There's this crazy long lead time to get a transformer for this. So we're well ahead of we hope right now. We have 2 buses on order. They've actually been submitted and we are anticipating the delivery of our first 2 battery electric buses in June of 2026.
And CTV just gave us authorization for 2 more yesterday. So we'll be putting in a second quarter for battery electric buses in September.
That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Awesome. Questions?
So you said that this grant prioritizes families and children. Does that mean that if we focus more on our school buses, that is more attractive to them, or is it routes that they're looking at?
This is FTA money for routes.
That's the route. So we're gonna be doing the analysis is we're looking at the budget level about what is the complement of folks who are on those routes, and then where we plan to expand service. So we're taking them into account, as we roll out the rest of our system optimization plan, because we don't have any real aspect on the constraining visual plan, we're talking about system optimization plan, working through that. How does it affect those families, how do we get better service to them? Getting a new facility, while we're making the transition, and make that better, more reliable, so that's our hope. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, plus the money is coming from the Department of Transportation through FTA, so I don't think we could use it for school buses, even if we wanted to, right? We cannot, so it's transit, we just have to make the argument as best we can so we can win this thing.
DOE has their own part of transportation, have their own grant funding cycles. We take them advantage of from some funding cycles on others for school buses, but this is transit specific. You can't combine themselves, can't co-mingle funds, so we're doing two separate tracks. We talked a little bit about the school bus project, but this one really focusing on what's necessary to make transit and the operations more efficient. And the major thing is we need space and need a updated facility where and if you can use other people's money, that's all that.
Did the study theorize, I mean, understood you got diesel and you got, try like hydrogen and electric. But ultimately it's to get rid of the diesel. So did the study and facilities and all that theorize that going away and then how that current diesel maintenance stuff gets reused?
So, great question. So so I hear, which is one of the things Bruce pointed out is that as we're building the new facility, we'll still be working on the old facility. So one, it allows us for continuity of services, so we're not impeding our ability to maintain and work with existing buses where, you don't have people in construction going while trying to fix a bus. So once that is built, we can, wait a few out the diesel out of the existing, and then we'll have to upload it anyway. I mean, if we need parking, there's a parking issue, but it's gonna take us a little while. We're hopeful that we can get this done within the time frame of this administration. So that's really one of the key things that everybody wants really cutting. So hopefully, we believe that we position ourselves with all the studies that we've done, that we can actually get to construction, and through completion, by the end of this, term. So I read the pattern before they exit.
You're also going to say about diesel buses until 2040, so we're looking, and it's going to be that.
And it's both the fueling and the maintenance. So
Right.
they both vary, so you need that much more space. Yeah, it just makes it complicated.
But at some point, 20 years, 30 years, you hope that they're gone.
That's true. Based on the mandate we've gotten about our transition, it will be done. Because right now, our goal is to not find another illegal bus after December 31st, 2027. So January 1st, 2028, we get back out. We get on the existing time frame, we get back out. That's the battery that get for.
And the diesel buses have a 12-year, 500,000 like cycle supposedly.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Questions or comments?
I mean, this is related, but, so like, trying to drive frequency is the ultimate goal, right? So we do need more space for more buses. If we build this out, you said we would have space for at least 60 buses, or how much is our potential capacity for new bus space if we're not able to get the Delaney property?
So great question. We have it in our original review. We are looking at adding maybe 20 vehicles on the second lot, which means that would give us the 60 capacity, but it doesn't give us anything beyond that. So we basically built that like that. So that's why the conversation started about adding the third Delaney property, because then it allowed us an opportunity to really plan out the facility over a 30-year horizon, for expansion, consolidation, whatever you want to call it. And as we go through the vision plan, the number is higher than 60, you have places to have a park. on a continuous line.
And just so I'm reading this map right, that area on the left, those are car parking spaces? That's parking lot?
Yes, this is
Yeah.
all car parking, worker parking right now, and this is where the old maintenance.
The old
building
is in,
would be.
how many spots is that? I mean, I could like do count, but if you know off the top.
Yeah, I don't know, it's probably 25, 30 spots is what it looks like.
We still don't really have enough spaces for that, but we are woefully short today. Doing additional. Zoe shaking her head. Look, we are playing musical chairs with, folks using the spaces right now. So, any relief that we get is gonna be, plus. And as we add additional drivers, it's gonna become more critical that we find additional places for. So, there's other decisions that have to be made, but, given our existing, the parking lot is like next to our facility, that's right in front of the schools. We may, need to have conversations about taking portions of that, as satellite parking for the cat.
Which brings it all, of course, back to
Yeah.
housing and where people are coming from. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
I'm sure that you've gone through, I do grants work also, so I was just like, I pulled up the NOFO and I was like skimming through it. And it does say that they're prioritizing low emissions projects, but y'all considered that when choosing like the electric and the fuel cell buses. which
yeah,
are
it's
zero
all
emissions.
low emission, but they have that flat, you saw could you read the sentence out loud about families? It's almost,
Oh, no, where is that one?
it's,
I just saw that within the low no program, FTA intends to prioritize low emission projects over zero emission projects
Yes,
to the
I'll-
maximum extent. And then the battery and the fuel cell are listed as zero emission.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
I'll read a sentence from the announcement I have.
okay.
FTA is now requiring transit agencies to describe how their projects will improve the accessibility of transportation for families with young children, with a focus on improved access to jobs, healthcare, and retail. And that's like.
children.
Childcare, I hope. Things like that.
Yeah, we're gonna meet it. We just have to make sure that our product answers the question. We have facts.
I went straight to the NOFO too, because I wanted to see how, what they were awarding dollar amount. I mean, it's like we in FY 24, Fairfax got $50 million.
Yeah. It's real money.
So we have, I think we have a good shot, and because I think what we'll be able to prove is that we'll be able to get into construction within a reasonable time frame and get, hopefully completed by the end of this, administration, which means that gives them an opportunity, for really cutting to this administration, which, I mean, if you think about it, I'm gonna award projects that I wanna be able to take credit for during my time, thank you, so.
Plus, we got all the products that we need. We didn't have it last year. We have the 3 reports, we have the cost analysis, we have a vacant lot next door. We're gonna have a NEPA that's almost complete.
Yeah, the vacant
Ready
lot
to-
next door helps, we're not having to include that in the proposal. Back to Ann's question about solar, is that included in the scope, or is that something that would be nice to have if possible?
So, we have not considered to add, language for solar panels. Our focus right now, I believe there are other grant opportunities that we'd be able to go out for solar. We don't have to necessarily go through the low grant opportunity. Sustainability tell us all the time about different grant opportunities to get, solar panels. So as soon as we get awarded, we're gonna turn them loose and let them go find us some money. And I'm pretty sure they'll be able to do that and be able to put solar panels on the facility.
And if this project just happens to come in under budget, is that money able to be used? Is it flexible, or do we have to give it back?
Yeah.
So we couldn't add that to the scope?
Yeah.
Later.
That's
All kinds of strings.
everything, everything about it. So if it's earmarked for construction of the project, we can't go back and change it.
Under construction of the project as proposed.
Correct.
Yeah,
As your grant agreement, as the award dictates.
right.
Yeah, they don't allow us that, I wish they did give us that kind of flexibility, but they do not.
Yeah.
So what we're asking that is that, you have a resolution, that you have to consider, that allow us, to recognize that you're, aware that that's gonna go out, but there's no low grant opportunity.
So the motion would be to move approval for supporting the fiscal year 2025 low or no emission grant application for Charlottesville area transit facility expansion project.
So moved.
Okay.
All right. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, for
Thank you.
answering the
My pleasure.
questions. Good luck.
Hopefully this starts some momentum, and we bring other stuff back to you.
You're ahead of the game as far as then doubling their rate in the next 10 years with that.
You must be inspired.
All right, the next item, we have a couple of informational presentations. The first, the Safe Streets and Roads for All Regional Move Safely Blue Bridge. This is the presentation of the final regional comprehensive safety action plan. Brady wants to lead us through this.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to present today. This is probably gonna be maybe the last presentation on CAMPO policy board. Maybe not the last update, but we're very close to the project's completion. Today I want to highlight a few things that very well, or many of you are familiar with. The Safe Streets and Roads for All background, Albemarle County's and City of Charlottesville leadership commitment, the planning process, the high injury network, the 4 E's of roadway safety, our public engagement processes, the proposed solutions and next steps. As you all know, in 2021, a bill was signed into law that became the bipartisan infrastructure law. That established the discretionary program, Safe Streets and Roads for All. This program supports the United States Department of Transportation National Roadway Safety Strategy and its vision of zero fatalities by 2050 using a safe system approach. As you know, the Move Safely Blue Ridge is a regional project, but the plan was designed in a way that it also considered super local plan, as it has specific jurisdictional chapters for each locality. This slide highlights Albemarle County's and City of Charlottesville leadership commitments. They both adopted resolutions to reduce the number of fatalities and serious injuries by half by 2045, with an addition of the City of Charlottesville eliminating roadway fatalities by 2045. So both of these goals were adopted in support and alignment of the safety state's priorities. Before I talk about the planning process, I want to acknowledge and thank the project team who, besides planners from TJPDC, consisted of the working group member represented by staff from each of the jurisdictions, VDOT, and as well as our consultant, or a little bit about the planning process. So it's divided into 4 key components and supported by 3 rounds of public engagement. All of these components of the safety action plan were very engaging throughout the entire process that ultimately led to the development of the final comprehensive safety action plan. One of the key methodologies that we developed for the project is the high injury network methodology. This serves as a map that shows the highest concentration of fatal crashes or crashes that resulted in fatalities and serious injuries. For your reference, it's tiered by the most severe crashes down to the least severe crashes. But this was very important to identify the locations that were included in the safety action plan, and we'll talk about a little bit more in the spot-specific improvements. So I want to highlight the 4 E's of roadway safety that this plan was built upon. The goals were to design safer facilities for all of our road users through engineering, build a culture of roadway safety through education, reinforce safe travel behaviors through enforcement, and save lives through emergency response. I want to talk about a little bit about the public engagement. So we provided the plan out to the public in 3 rounds. In round 1, we identified issues and opportunities in the entire region. In round 2, we engaged on strategies and priorities. And the 3rd round was the review of the comprehensive safety action plan or the draft document through your board meetings. Now, I want to say that for all 3 rounds, for the first 2 rounds, we went out to where the public was to meet their needs and get as much feedback as we could for all kinds of road users and different ages as well. That ultimately led to our proposed solutions, and I want to say thank you to VDOT for this segment, because without their help, well, not just VDOT, but also jurisdictional staff for this segment, because we would not have developed the segment without their feedback and without their help. But our proposed solutions are divided into 3 categories. First, we have spot improvements. These are engineering countermeasures that are specific high risk intersections, and they're proven solutions for safety that will reduce the total number of fatalities and serious injuries within the county. The next category is the systemic improvements. These can be applied on the entire roadway network within the county, and how these are classified as low cost, high impact solutions to achieve our goal. And the final proposed solutions are the policies and programs. These are the non-engineering solutions that can be applied to address the other E's of the project. All of the proposed solutions are highlighted into the safety action plan. So with the adoption of Move Safe with Blue Ridge Comprehensive Safety Action Plan, both City of Charlottesville and Albemarle County are now in position to be eligible applicants for implementation funding in the next Safe Streets and Roads for All rounds. As you all know, there is currently a round ongoing with deadline applications by tomorrow. So we definitely missed this round, but there's going to be another round next year with about $1 billion. And I just want to mention that since that one is being the last round for now, it probably will be highly competitive when it comes to implementation projects. So I think more of the funding will be allocated towards implementation and less for planning and development. When it comes to the monitoring, PJPDC's team will do an annual update on the data of the safety action plan to be in line with further safety transportation trend and further refine our strategies as needed. That's all I have today. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? I just, to reiterate the point that each locality has to go for the new grant on their own. Well, this was a regional approach to getting this step done. The next step for the input or for the planning part, for the implementation, each jurisdiction has to decide and then do that effort on their own to get the next step.
Yes, exactly.
And do that effort on their own. There are other places that are submitting regional applications that are including systemic improvements across multiple jurisdictions and are submitting on behalf of their region. So the PDC is an applicant, the MPO is an eligible applicant, but local jurisdictions are the preferred applicant because it is specific to your needs. So for example, in the Fredericksburg region, they just submitted or they're about to submit an application, assuming their board approved. It was in their packet a couple weeks ago. That they were submitting a significant grant on behalf of all their jurisdictions for about 8 different projects across the region.
That seems like an interesting way to prioritize, since Virginia has independent cities. that are often metro areas. So specifying local preference when it's always gonna be regional seems kind of backwards from the, right? Not that we can do anything about it, but.
Appreciate all the work and effort going on and that of staff to put all this together and bring it to conclusion. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also pleased to share, if I may just interject, I know we're in the MPO meeting, but all 6 of the PDC's jurisdictions did approve it at the board level. So city, county, and 4 surrounding rural jurisdictions all have approved the final plan for submission back to FHWA.
I think I noted the individual jurisdiction comment like I just made at the commission meeting, but I don't remember the regional aspect of this mention. So maybe we could just highlight that. For the next
Yeah, I think one of the things, you know, and I'm happy to do some more research into this. I think one of the things that in one of the webinars that we watched is the PDC can't apply on behalf of Albemarle. Like we can't apply for you for a project. We can apply on behalf of the region for a series of connected regional projects. I would have to go back and look and say if Albemarle wants this one specific thing and Fluvanna wants a different specific thing, whether you can couple them together. Or if it's, hey, rumble strips were a thing across all 6, let's go ahead and put in an application for this very connected. I'd have to look back at what the details of that were. I don't know if you know them, but I don't off the top.
So it could be connected either like thematically
We'd have to go.
or systemically.
That's what we'd have to go look at. That's exactly right.
Worth checking into. All right, great. So the next item is the Campo CTAC membership and appointments. There was a document included in your in the packet. Is who's speaking? Is Sarah speaking?
I can speak to that one.
Yep.
And so we included that on there for your reference. There are just a couple slides that pulled out information from the CTAC bylaws for your reference. We have this item on here because the CTAC committee consists of 13 members total, 3 of which are appointed by the MPO. And so we have 2 member terms that have expired currently, and we have 1 MPO appointed member that is asked to resign. And so as the MPO, you all would be the appointing body for those 3 people, and we have not received any applications to date so far for those. And so we included this just to ask, is there anyone specific that you all would like us to reach out to and maybe share the application with? Is there a way that you all would like to amplify these vacancies, or how would you like to approach it?
I would like to introduce the notion that, and I'll ask if Ms. Bentley wants to comment on it as well, but the Albemarle County representatives of CTAC have begun to question the purpose of CTAC when a long-range transportation plan is not information. And what's the point? Just be blunt about it. So in the pre-agenda, we thought it best to put this here so that the policy board can start thinking about, I think it's time to consider its charge. Does it need to have a charge when a transportation plan is not being actively worked on? And if it does, what is it? So that we can give I think it was frustrating to hear folks who are participating in the committee say, I don't know what we're supposed to be doing. So I can't imagine their frustration since they're the ones that are wondering that, but I was just frustrated hearing it. So I think the policy board needs to grapple with this. So this is kind of the introductory, all right, the CTAC, do we need CTAC outside of transportation, long-range transportation plan formation? And if so, what is its purpose and charge? And we need to figure that out and decide that. So this is kind of the knock on the door of a conversation that will happen in probably the next meeting or so as we figure that out. Would you like, I invite you to make any additional comments?
I think that's really timely. Our last meeting was just on this specific topic. We went through the bylaws. We actually had like a really great discussion about the original scope that the CTAC was charged with and how it's operating now. I think everybody on the board is interested in being more active participants in the regional transit planning and in a capacity to advise the policy board, but the current policies right now don't really allow that. We often hear about presentations after the policy board has already look at them, and decide about them, so there's not really a time to advise. I think that was one of the things that many people talked about, like, I hear these presentations in this meeting, and then the same people come and present at the CTAD. And so there's not like an opportunity, to come back necessarily and advise at the same time that y'all are hearing about it. So we had come up with a number of different suggestions for amending the bylaws. And those were gonna be voted on the next CTEC meeting and then presented to the policy board for y'all's review. That sounds all accurate? Yeah.
it does.
And just, trying to like understand what the policy board wants from like a, citizens committee and how we can best serve this board.
So your work that you've done currently was really suggested how it could exist, given the current state of things.
Yeah.
To improve engagement and advice.
Yes.
Okay. And then the board could ultimately take that and decide yes, or, with all due respect, you could be like, well, no, we just want it during the long range transportation plan. Is there, I'm gonna kind of look to Taylor and Christine here, is there work that, I mean, I'd be willing to do it myself as the chair to engage with the CTEC group in preparation for the next policy board meeting, whether it's preparing information or be able to speak to it.
Yes,
When is our next meeting? August?
Yes.
yes, you're everything. Yes.
Yes. And that's on this agenda too, to talk
Yeah.
about the fiscal year 26 meeting date.
And
Yeah,
everybody
yeah,
else doing like bylaws work during the summer.
July especially.
Time. So
Yes.
what are your thoughts on how the process would be? Would that be, and I mean, just assuming that the policy board would all right with myself, I mean, of course, the vice chair could be involved as well. But we can, I mean. see
And
how
we had talked about this, but I've heard the same thing from at least one of our city reps that they wonder what's up.
And if I can speak, staff also often says, what are we supposed to be doing necessarily with this group outside of that long range plan? And what is the comparative advantage of having a citizens advisory committee? A lot of the planning work we do already has a great deal of public engagement. How is the advisory committee different than the general public feedback? Are they there to propose plans? Are they there to advise on direction? Are they there to give feedback on existing drafts of work? And so I think talking through that is really important for us to make sure that we don't have a committee that's expecting and wanting to do one thing, but it's not informing you in the decisions that you all need to make. And so it doesn't become an effective tool. So we want to make sure that we're also able as staff to manage those expectations and get you all what you need from this group, if in fact there is something you need from this group that you're not getting from the general public.
One of the biggest challenges that we've seen over the last 5 years or so is how to engage with public where they are. And as an 8-year veteran from 2000 to 2008 on what was called chart back then.
Yep.
That was number one, there was huge controversy in the area. This was the third or fourth iteration of the bypass. And
Right.
so every single meeting, there was some hoopla going on about that. And we did not hesitate to take our obstructionist view up to the policy board and say, look, guys, you gotta stop doing what you're doing, or don't change what you're doing, any number of different things. So I think 2 predecessors to Christine tried to do away with that and really restricted their ability to do anything. So perhaps in your archives, you might go back to, 20 years or so and think I remember fully great engagement on LRCP, but also here are things that other places are doing. And VDOT was back in its prehistory. We're never going to build roundabouts here. Are you there, Chuck? I remember you saying that. And, but we had constant engagement about that for about 4 years until the first roundabout in Albemarle was built, and maybe in the whole Central Virginia at the airport. And we were killing somebody every single year there. And since then, there has never been invested. So I think it was a great learning experience, a great way to focus a lot of community attention. There were many other things such as transit to the airport, where there was a lot of talk about that in the community, and the airport squashed it like a bug because they wanted to bring it in from the park. but that's something that's still going on and still being raised. So, I would just ask, see what you all can turn up.
Mhm.
Because I think my documents are so covered in cobwebs now, they wouldn't do us any good. But it was Pete Anderson, the university architect, came to every single meeting. I mean, this was, maybe it's because there was nothing else going on in the early 2000s. And so we were all glad to troop down here every month and in the old brochure and do things. But it was certainly a lot of wonderful engagement. Worked on the light rail possibilities from Stanton to Zions Crossroads, and trooped around in the briars out there and looked at all the various possible siding locations and things like that. So I think that sky's the limit as far as the type of information that the group could get engaged in. And I, for one, would be very happy with whatever ideas they come up with. Thank you.
I would also add that we're unique in our area for our Citizens Advisory Committee compared to some benchmark looking across other MPOs or TPOs that have one. Not all of them have one. They instate it during the long range plan and then it sunsets until the next long range plan. But we happen to have a group of fairly technical people on a Citizens Advisory Committee. We've got engineers, we've got professors, we've got planning commissioners. You know, we've got folks that are offering a technical perspective versus a citizen hub and spoke outreach to other citizens. And so also looking at that, I think is going to be really important because we want to also, and this is me speaking, so I don't want to get myself, we want to make sure that we're not outweighing the opinions of individual technical members against what the technical committee's role is supposed to be. This is supposed to be more of a general citizen perspective. And so when we get things like design drawings from a citizen, we would not receive them from any other citizen member and bring them to you all and say, do you want to consider this? So we need a little bit of help navigating what is it that you guys need from this individual group that is unique to what feedback you're getting from the technical committee and from the broader public? And how can they help you get what you need? So I love your suggestion that in the short term, let's you and perhaps you, if you're interested and have the time, working with the chair of the Citizens Committee to look at their recommendations and maybe workshop some of that before it comes back to this body.
So who will be point on trying to start the coordinating that around?
I can support that.
And just
Happy to.
include any objection to the chair and vice chair taking that on, by anybody else? I want to do some summer bylaw work and stuff. Okay, so
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily commit, I mean, we'll
Sure.
look at timing, things like that.
Summer law work.
But, and then, I don't know, does CTAC have a vice chair?
Yeah,
So I mean, you might want to include the vice chair of CTAC.
yeah, I think she'd like to be the judge for sure.
And then also as we move further into the agenda, we're going to talk about some proposed changes to perhaps the way that all of the transportation meetings are stacked. Because we recognize when we were meeting every single month, it was a lot easier to bring things to one committee before the other. Now that we're every other committee, we do have times where things will need to come to you, for example, such as Lono, and there's no opportunity to get it before CTAC because they don't meet until another month after you. So we'd also like to look at the staggering of those meetings to make sure that there is ample opportunity for that committee to weigh in either before or after the technical committee before it comes to you all.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your expression about a private engineer comes up with an idea, but he would not go any further. And this reminded me that over many years, when citizen groups had done ordinance work, for example, on our overlap grading in 2010, maybe, university, some other private people, and they did monstrous amounts of work and brought us a draft bylaw, and it saved 5 years because it was adopted in a number of months. So that was a very positive experience from Albemarle's perspective, and so I'm not sure if there isn't a space for an outside ID. I mean, you'd have to hand it off to proper, be somebody else more official in the hierarchy to see if it wouldn't do me any good to see it, that's for sure. But
Well, and that's part of what I'm saying is would we receive it from a citizen and bring it to you all to, that doesn't seem like the correct process.
On the Bike and Pet Advisory Committee, that's been used for kind of crowdsourcing information and ideas and putting together lists of things that then the city does act on. So it's not, unheard of to do that kind of thing. I don't know if technical drawings are necessarily coming out of that, but I think there's room for consideration.
I think that is entirely up to how you all direct us when we go through this process.
All right,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you. So that will take us to item 6. We've got staff updates and then our upcoming meeting schedule. The first is the TIP administrative modifications amendment, and Corian will go over this.
Thank you. So there is a informational item, but also, an action from the board. There's has been 2 requests for 2 separate adjustments to the TIP document. The first request comes from DRPT, and it's adjustment 13 to the TIP. The request is to add funding to the fiscal year 2025 in the amount of $215,000, from which 34 are gonna be state funds, 172 federal 5310 funds, and 8,000 in local match. The other adjustment, number 14, comes from VDOT, and this one is to update the preventive maintenance for bridges grouping to reflect the most recent changes. This adjustment moves $335,000 from the STBG funds from federal fiscal year 2024 to federal fiscal year 2025 to reflect the actual expenditures during the same period. The last piece is the amendment number 12 to the TIC document. This request comes from DRPT again, and it's asking us to add a new TIP block titled Operating Assistance. This block will provide funding to the PATH program, and in details that is $3,000 in FTA 5310 funds, $3,000 in state funds, and $1,000 in local match. As I said, this is to support the PATH program, specifically volunteer driver programs, so they can increase transportation services for older adults. This will also cover mileage reimbursements for drivers and background checks. So in the agenda packet, there was a memo from CAMPO staff as well as CAMPO technical committee, both recommending that the policy board adopt the new TIP block or new amendment to the TIP. And I just want to mention that this request has to be completed by July 1st of this year.
And just to clarify, because the resolution is just specific to amendment number 12, right? That's all.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So the motion would be, are there any questions first? So the motion would be, move to approve amendment number 12 to the Charlottesville MPO fiscal year 24-27 transportation improvement program.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention? So, awesome. Motion approved, thank you, Lauren. Item B under 6, the fiscal year 26 UPWP updated allocations. Taylor, speak to that?
Yeah. So the policy board formally adopted the UPWP at your last meeting on April 23rd with anticipated updates to the budget once we receive those allocations. So I have included in the packet the final UPWP document. We have received final allocations from DRPT for the transit funds, and we have received VDOT's SPR budget. So now none of these numbers are draft any longer, and the additional funds were split proportionally across all 3 tasks in the same proportions that were presented the first time in the UPWP.
Any questions? That doesn't require any action on our part, just an informational update.
Right.
So no questions. All right, then C, the fiscal year 26 calendar of meetings.
And so for this item, we did want to give you all an update. So at the MPO Tech Committee's meeting last week, we proposed and they accepted moving their current meeting times from, it was every other 3rd Tuesday from 10 to 12, moving that to every other 1st Tuesday from 10 to 12. And that will give us a little bit more of a buffer between the meetings of the technical committee and policy board in case they direct us to make any technical changes to work. And staff would have a little bit more time to be able to make those changes before it came in front of you for your consideration. That was one reason for that. And then the other was that it also conflicted with Commonwealth Transportation Board meetings, and staff at our agency and also at their organizations probably should be attending and listening to those in real time. So being able to move that helps accommodate that as well. For the MPO Policy Board, you all currently meet every other fourth Wednesday from 4 to 6. We propose keeping that day, but bumping it from 4 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. since the regional housing partnership meets right before, and there's no buffer currently between those two meetings. So sometimes folks have to kind of come over in a hurry. We still have to kind of flip this room if they're meeting in the same room, and that would just give us a little bit more of a buffer to be able to do that. Does this day and time still work for everyone generally? 4 to 6?
And the indications when,
I'm sorry.
if there's a 6 p.m. start, for either jurisdiction, or not, that
Okay.
may complicate things.
Right.
As it has in the past.
Right.
Maybe we default to 4:30 and then for the pop-ups that it's a conflict, we scooch it back to 4 as needed.
I don't think we need something like that, but I mean, if you wanted a set time, but. We've always been, I think it's been more conflict for Albemarle than Charlottesville Wednesday, but it's all Thursday.
Our Thursday budgets are RTP conflict, yeah.
Right, is that good?
Yes, it is.
Alright.
So 4:30. Okay, so we can get those calendar holds out for fiscal year 26 shortly after this meeting for everyone.
Thank you.
Very helpful. This is very helpful.
Yes.
Great. Number 7, VDOT update on projects. Sandy is walking up. Chuck is muted on this online.
Sorry, Chuck will jump in if he needs to. So first of all, believe it or not, we are done with round 6 of Smart Scale. The CTV approved all of they're all officially funded. So that's a wrap on round 6, and we're talking about round 7 now. We are going to the VDOT Culpeper District. We'll be in the not too distant future reaching out to localities and our regional partners to start talking about round 7 potential applications of interest. We as the district are currently working on developing some additional tools to help vet applications. But speaking of moving meetings for the CTV meeting, fresh off the press is that I heard that there's going to be a pretty substantive review of project performance from round 6 at the July meeting. So that will probably provide a lot of good feedback to know what to do going into round 7. Excuse me.
Yeah.
We've been talking about the STARS project. So we have the project in the city of Charlottesville, the Ridgeback entire West Main Water Street intersection project. We completed the public engagement on that and held the alternatives meeting to start talking about potential alternatives at that intersection in May. And we're currently working on setting up a public feedback meeting in early August. That will be a meeting, and we'll also be pairing that with a second survey to get feedback on the alternatives at that intersection. And then the combined US 29 study between Barracks Road and Woodbrook. We completed the public survey. We had over 2,000 responses on that one. And we also held the kickoff meeting for the transit component of that study. The existing conditions report will be completed in early August. We wrapped up the 2 surveys for the pipeline projects. That's the 5th Street DDI at the I-64 interchange, and then the US 29 at I-64 exit 118 interchange. We had 450 responses on the US 29 survey and over 700 on the 5th Street survey. We have a meeting on Friday for those 2 to start talking about existing conditions, what we learned from the public feedback, and start determining which alternatives we might want to move forward for further vetting. So for the pipeline, we will be moving into the alternatives evaluation part of this next month. And are there any questions on the studies? Thanks. Thank you.
Hold on, I might have a question. I was just looking everywhere else first. So you mentioned final round 6 is done. I won't try to stay too focused on that. Wasn't exactly sunshiny news for us here locally. So looking forward to round 7, what sunshiny news can you give us to hope for
I think we have a better idea, and please feel free to jump in if you want on that. I think we have a better idea of how to appropriately scale the applications and what to look forward for in terms of what types of applications are going to perform well. That said, I think everybody in the state is trying to do the same thing, so I would anticipate that there will be a very competitive round. But we want to do our due diligence to help set up all of our applicants for success with their applications. The Culpeper District has always performed really well, above average for how those scores go, but you know, we can't guarantee any outcomes.
Have there been any thoughts coming from the CTV members? I mean, last year they sort of took the bucket and dumped it on the floor and started from scratch, but so many different things. Is that gonna happen again, or are they gonna leave things alone for a little bit?
It does not sound like that is the intention. They probably would have started that by now if they were going to do that.
I think they'll do a review and have a discussion, but I don't necessarily know if they're going to be a lot of implemented changes.
That's what I said.
Actually, that was my exact question is, you know, since the rules changed recently, are we anticipating changes again?
They do a review every round, so there might be minor changes, but I wouldn't anticipate kind of that scale of changes.
How much does the governor's administration have an impact on that sort of thing?
I mean, they appoint the CTV members to some extent. The CTV ultimately decides the policy, but a lot of that is in state code. So if there are changes, depending on the type of change, there are some changes that they can do through CTV direction, and some things that they would have to go through and actually change state code.
Somewhere in the homework for today, there were, maybe it was in the tip, you talked about Darby Fund. It always makes me really, really nervous when we talk about borrowing based upon future receipts from federal government. So do you have any sense or the discussions that you're hearing about more use of these? I know during the McDonald administration, they were trying to, you know, pay for everything now. They were 460 Boston. So
I think it's a tool that is used. And with our CFO fund transportation projects, there was a discussion, I believe, with people like already bonds during the CPB meeting earlier this week. So I mean, it's, I don't think it's any more or less than it has been in the past.
what's different probably is going to be the rating that's coming out. Where they sign the contract, I hope they'll find out.
I don't think any of us have that.
Yeah, yeah. That was the anxiety, that all of a sudden Virginia was gonna get left off the hook if the federal money wasn't there, and then it's like contracts, what they did, this, all these projects. And that's not the same as offline is fine, but in another part of the homework, I guess it was the tip, they were talking about what the image of the MPO looks as if it is really big. And I don't know if that happened in the last year or a couple of years ago, and I just didn't notice it. It goes way,
Sorry,
way beyond.
where was that, Ann? I'm sorry, I missed the first part.
Page 17, maybe, if that's.
Oh, within the tip? Thank you.
Expand, yeah, tip, sorry, expand geography. Lots of, all the way to Route 20 on the east side of 29, and way beyond Earlysville, which is the boonies. On the northwest part of the county. And so there is not one urban thing about where I live. I can't tell you, and I just wonder why it's so big now. And what the consequences would be for those changes. And that was another thing that the person two times before Christine was going to wanted to make it later, but I don't know if it's simple or not. So anyway, that's a thought. I'll just leave it on the table. You all can tell me what's going on. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us to our roundtable updates. I will move through the online folks first. Jason, I see your name first. SP, would you like to give an update?
Yes, hold on a second while I get my camera on. Hello, everybody. So John is currently engaged in developing a communications and marketing plan. We're also happy to report that the Commonwealth Transportation Board approved the applications we made for a variety of things, including our facilities and parking lot upgrades, as well as micro transit and for ADA and possibly Greene County pilot, as well as full scheduling and dispatch software transition, which is decades in the making, overdue. The other thing we've been working on lately, some of you have received a notice that we are engaged in a community survey, which is part of our due diligence as a transit agency to talk to our riders and people who use us or not. We launched this study on June 2nd. We'll be concluding on July 2nd. Currently, I want to thank everybody who's helped spread the word. We've been using QR codes, paper copies in all buses, flyers. We've had people ride the bus. We've distributed local media, TV, radio, UVA. We've had print and news outlets and posted on socials with paid ads. Currently, we have about 654 respondents, which we're very happy about. We have 1 week to go, and we're hoping for a strong finish before the 4th of July holiday. And we need to share our results of this with our board, the jump board, which is going to meet on August 13th. And thereafter, that meeting will be able to make presentations to other bodies like this one or the Rural Transportation Policy Board or RTAC, or any of the others as desired. And yeah, that's about it for now. A few updates. And we're looking forward to the, by the way, the survey is exciting. There's a lot of interesting stuff in there. So I'm looking forward to sharing that with you.
Thank you. Mitch, DRPT, I see you're on there now. Oh, I would earlier.
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Just a few brief updates, and Jason alluded to this. The SIP was adopted, and you can view our now approved SIP on our website in a pretty cool interactive manner on there if anyone hasn't checked it out. And just another plug for some NTI courses that we are helping to host. So upcoming very quickly now, we have our public involvement in transportation decision making. That's available for registration for July 8th through the 10th. And that's being hosted here in Richmond at Reynolds Community College. And then we also have state and metropolitan transportation planning. That'll be September 15th and 16th at Plan RVA's headquarters here in Richmond as well. We are also hosting a remix training for any of those planners interested as well. And you can reach out to us for registration information. And that will be at GRTC. We'll be hosting that one. And I believe that's all from us.
Great. Thank you. And I can't see all the names. Is that everybody that's online that may give an update? Can you all see if there's any other names on there? I think that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
All right.
Good.
Oh, hello. Oh,
No, I was just saying you're good.
thank you. Julia from UVA. I must missed you the last time.
Yes. I don't think we have any updates, just that UTS is on summer schedule. That's pretty clear to everybody, so yeah.
Great, thank you. Mr. Williams, beyond what was presented today, any updates?
Just a quick one. We're gonna be giving an update to City Council on July 21st. What we noticed as during our budget process this year is that the way it's compressed, we don't really have an opportunity to lay out all of our planning, how we, the scenarios that we want to go through and how to just get those funded. So we're actually going to be starting that process, laying out scenarios that council talked about, showing them kind of how much the system optimization plan that was created back in 32. They kind of refresh and update of that, and then other scenarios that they highlighted during the budget process. So we're going to be giving an update there on the 21st at the 4 o'clock session. So just want to give everybody a heads up on that. So this starts kind of our budget planning process. It's the beginning, it's not the end. There'll be a whole lot more discussions after this, but it does give you a flavor for kind of what is being contemplated and potential costs for those So as we are starting the real budget process, that kicks off usually in August, September, then we would have, the governing bodies would have an idea of, potential costs for, additional transit services. So they can make decisions up front as opposed to being pressed. We get to the last, 30 days of the budget schedule. So that's a good thing. Additionally, we have some capital money that, that we basically spending that now. Some, amenity projects are up and going. We have a major one that we've been trying to get, underway at, Crescent Hall, I'm sorry, Midway Manor. Midway Manor, Gary comes with me. Midway Manor. The goal is to have that one started on June 30th. So that's soon. And I'm hopeful that that project should be done within 90 days. That would be optimal schedule to get that up and completed in 90 days. And then we have other amenities projects that we have identified for funding for the next capital year. There are 3, I believe, in the county, and then the 5 in the city.
There's 3 remaining city, 5 backwards.
Eight. It's 8 amenities projects. There, want to give everybody kind of a flavor for our costs. We will be happy to do a presentation if you would like us to do that. But amenities projects for transit are pretty expensive. We have if anybody has gone by or would like to go by, there's a ADA compliant bus stop at Albemarle County in the city. That project cost us $135,000 to make life. It was a great issue. We had utilities, all sorts of things. There are others that have been $70,000 to $80,000. So we were anticipating that it was about $30,000 piece. Yes, we were way for the curve for that. We see that now. So the numbers are probably about $75,000 to $80,000 per bus stop. So we had to go back in and ask for additional funding to make some additional projects happen. So we're moving along. The goal is to continue to inch along and make the community bus stops ADA compliant as possible.
And does that also include shelters?
Some will have shelters, all of them, every bus stop that we have, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily want a shelter. But to make them compliant, the first step is to put in the bus pad, the pad itself. The bus pad itself that can support a shelter, but that will make it compliant first. And then we should have really, detailed information about whether the stop warrants a shelter. Because if the ridership is 2 or 3, maybe it's not a shelter, maybe it's a bench as opposed to a shelter. And then as the ridership continue to go up, and then we'll come back and potentially change it out from a bench to a shelter. But
it's a catch-22.
It is.
It is 95 degrees. Nobody's gonna stand at that bus stop because they can't sit down and they can't be protected from the heat or the snow or the ice or whatever. So I understand you're in a trap.
Not opposed to
Okay.
shelters
Yeah.
everywhere, like this, it may be cost prohibitive of us to do that. And then are we really, like I said, if the ridership is low, if it's an outbound stop and we're towards the end of the line and people are getting off to go home, you don't necessarily put a shelter there because they're not using it, right? So we just have to make sure that we are, we clearly describe what's happening at the bus stop before we make the capital outlay of putting in a shelter at a bus stop. That's it.
And somebody asked me a question I didn't have the answer to. Are there regular reports that you provide to county staff about ridership and number of routes without, drivers or whatever, so that on a monthly basis or something?
So actually, part of what was asked of me when I first got here almost 6 years ago now, is that we have we have a dashboard that actually allows you to see all that information. It gets we're working with UTA, which is our APC data on collecting all 13, and they are updating our information with Nelson Agar once a quarter, once a month.
But it's building.
So Zoe knows because she's been tasked with making sure that we get that done. So we did a 2-year dump about 3 months ago, 4 months ago. So you're starting to see regularly more updates. So the system you're going to be able to get is going to get more refined, more information, more history there. So you'll be able to see the real trends in our system. That's to go.
Well, it's been a whole new world in the last 6 years since you've been out, so thank you for what you've done to help us get in the program. That's great.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Becker. Any additional?
At our last meeting, we did have a member of the public come and just express their concerns about the activist who was arrested for spray painting the crosswalk on Elliott. And we just like all the members of the board have like expressed that they've been hearing a lot from their communities and the folks that they knew in the area. Both concerns about pedestrian safety, and we're really grateful for like the quick builds and everything that the like pedestrian councils been helping in the city, but just concerns about pedestrian safety in the region, and then also this one specific.
Great, thank you. Stacy.
Nothing for me today.
John?
So last time we met, I talked about some of the public hearings, so public engagement meetings we're having for projects. So on May 8th, we had the citizen information meet for the Avon Street multimodal improvement project. It was fairly well attended conversation about a parking station for that meeting. Then we also had the Fontaine public hearing, which was very positive. That public hearing was about the interchange there at 29, also the city's portion of the streetscape on Fontaine, and then the District Avenue roundabout. That public hearing was held and well attended. Some construction updates. The 24250 roundabout is ongoing. We're maybe looking at detours for the 680 bridge sometime starting after on the 4th of July. For the 5th Street Old Lynchburg roundabout, we're working on right-of-way acquisition letters. Be issued that we actually issued last week. The Railroad John Warner Parkway roundabout in Belvedere Green Tea, we're working on getting right-of-way plans approved there. And the 20 and 53 roundabout, we're working on final design. Those are all under design build, active construction project, and the landing working all at one time. On hydraulic, looking at the bridge deck for sometime after July 4th. So the pedestrian bridge is moving along fairly well.
Questions for Sean? There's questions.
Okay, regular updates on the like on the Culver District website.
Sure. So I gave a lot of details to City Council at the beginning of this month, giving sort of an annual overview of what we do with transportation planning. So I'm going to leave a lot of that to that presentation. If you want to go back and check that out. But a couple of things I do want to highlight that we didn't talk about in this May. May was Bike Month. We had a very successful Bike Month in the city. Lots of events, dozens of events across the city. We also worked with the county and the MPO to promote a business challenge to get people to the community to work. So that was all great for the month of May. But what happened beyond May was kind of the next question. And what we launched during May is for part of the answer to that, which is bikeseagull.com. That is a place for us to gather information about where to bike, when to bike, when there are events out, where to get a bike. So everything that you want to know about biking in this region, we're trying to concentrate on that website. So good information up there now. It's going to continue to be built out over the coming years with our participation in the county that we see. The other thing I mentioned that we talked about a bit during that city council update is our quick build program. Recently, council put aside some money from our surplus into what we're calling urban transportation improvements. These are quick little projects that we're putting at intersections where we have unsafe crossings, but also traffic calming devices in neighborhoods where we want to test them. So in the future, when we look at lowering speed limits, we know how to do that, we know how to make changes in the time. It's about 34 projects for $500,000 that we're trying to put on the ground this calendar year. In addition to those 34, we've certified another 33 quick build projects that are similar flavor that will fund out of some existing city funds. So that'll be about $1 million worth of quick builds that we're trying to get out the door over the next year and test a lot of improvements, see what works, try to get feedback qualitatively and see, has this changed the behavior of ours, but also get some feedback from our residents if they can feel safer, should we be doing a lot more. When we're looking for future grant opportunities for things like HSIP, we'd like to know what works and what we can put in a lot of different places so that we can utilize state and federal funds smartly. So we're having a fun summer of putting new ideas out on the ground and testing some things and hoping to all out and then work out.
When you try these portable, like the portable baseball mill, for roundabout, where you just fold it down to the ground and try it.
We have some main roundabouts. We've got two that we started, fully finished with the design on the Rosehead Drive. Sort of up either in early middle school. So that area of early middle school will have some traffic. Yeah. So that's what I'm really excited about. Testing. There are a lot of opportunities that get sort of smaller than in a lot of areas where we have.
Well, I look forward to hearing about it because I know at least a dozen places in the world this need to be experimented on. That would be great. Thank you. So,
Howdy, a couple of things. This past May, as part of Bike Month, we also kicked off the 3-notch trail initiative and planning project. Very successful. Have quite a few people attend. I think over 150 people. So very successful event. We're now in the process of looking at alternatives and meeting with our technical advisory group on that project and moving forward. Then we're really excited now. The other project we're pretty excited about is the Free Bridge Lane closure to vehicles. We just got our pedestrian and bike count information back, I think earlier this week, maybe last week. And it's proven very successful. We'll be coming to the board in August for determination whether we need to continue that project as well. Last thing, you probably all know that we're in the middle of our comp plan update. We brought our transportation chapter to the board in May as well. Got plenty of comments and good feedback. The thing I want to mention about that is it does call for a multimodal plan that we hope to kick off after adoption for the urban areas of the county. So.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? That's supposed to give up.
Can I add
Yeah.
a couple things? Speaking of quick builds, which were mentioned a couple of times, if anybody wants to join the Bike Ped Advocacy Committee, next advisory committee, sorry, thank you. Next month, because it's July 3rd, which is holiday, we're changing our schedule a little bit. So instead of having a full meeting, we're gonna go on a bike and walk to the quick build, a lot of the quick build projects. So if people wanna do a lap through the city and check those out, it's gonna meet outside of City Hall at 5 o'clock on Thursday, July 3rd. So anybody is welcome to join for that. And then the other thing, Ben also mentioned going back and looking at the presentation he gave. There's a website that some local constituents made that's called meetings.cvilledata.org that has both city, county, Harrisonburg and Greene County meetings, and it has the video with the transcript right next to it, and you can jump to the transcript and check out exactly where that part of the meeting is, and so you can easily navigate to where you want to watch. And so that's been super helpful to go back and to refer to things that Russell said.
What was that again?
It is meetings.cvilledata.org, but it does include county meetings as well.
Well,
And it's not just council and board of supervisors, there's planning commission and so, yes.
Sure. Awesome. Any other? Good of the order? All right, any additional matters from the public? So Mr. Krebs. All right. We will close matters from the public, and if there is no objection, we will adjourn. And our next meeting is in August, so I don't have the date right off the top. But enjoy your summer.
I love summer.
I love summer.
Quick build summer.